Hi there, my name is Weronika or Vera. I'm an illustrator and a surface designer based in Berlin, Germany. And I'm very excited to be here today because I will be showing you my process of creating vector repeat patterns in Affinity Designer on my iPad. So Affinity Designer is my most favorite tool for creating vector patterns. At first, I did a lot of raster work, raster illustration, but after I have discovered the magic of using vectors, there was no way going back. And pretty much most of my work is vector based. And if my patterns have a little bit of pixel, then it's really just a small percentage. I love creating patterns inspired by nature and by the life around me. So naturally, you will find in my portfolio a lot of botanical motifs. I'm also a teacher. I produce online courses teaching Affinity Designer. Personally, I use the iPad version most of the time. I also have the desktop version, but I absolutely love the flexibility of being able to design wherever you go. You can take your iPad with you to one of the cool Berlin cafes, or you can just, watch TV, sit on the sofa and design kind of in the background. So I have a few courses on Affinity Designer. They are available either through a Skillshare membership or they are available through my website. And before we dive into repeat pattern making in Affinity Designer, I wanted to let you know that regardless of the version of Affinity Designer that you're using, you will be able to follow along. So I will be using Designer version 2 on my iPad. If you prefer to use desktop version, as long as you know where the tools are located, you are also able to follow along and create your vector pattern with me. And on top of that, if you're still on Affinity Designer version 1, you can follow along as well. The contextual menu will be just below and not above. I will show you that during the demonstration as well. And there's one pretty big difference that I will also point out during my tutorial, that version 1 doesn't have the auto close for the pencil tool. Okay, so now we can dive in. Let's go to Affinity Designer interface. Okay, fantastic. Let's get started. So like I said, I will be working on my iPad. However, all the steps that I'm showing here, they're also applicable to the desktop version. So you are more than welcome to use any software that you have. I will also show you a small thing that you have to take into account in case you're using version 1 instead of version 2, but even if you have version 1, you can also follow along. So here is my Live Docs homepage in Affinity Designer on my iPad. You see that I have a whole bunch of different patterns in here because apart from a few stickers designs, patterns are the main thing that I do with Affinity. And I wanted to show you, before we move on to creating our own pattern, a few documents to show you my setup. For instance, this is a pattern that I created for my new patterns course. So if you take this course, we will be drawing exactly this pattern together. And you will see straight away that I really love working on multiple artboards. So we have the main pattern tile over here in the upper left corner. And then I have an additional artboard for my color palettes, for my inspiration. So here I can, for example, paste in some stock photos as reference photos. And I also have my sketch here that was my reference as I was drawing those carrot shapes and those cute little carrot slices. And this bigger artboard is my live pattern preview. So as a reminder, in case you haven't seen that YouTube video of mine where I'm talking about the live pattern preview, making sure that we're on the move tool, let's select one of the carrots and demonstrate what this can do. Yeah, you can see it, that thanks to this live preview, we are able to see what we're doing with our pattern. This is actually huge. We are able to work on a beautiful pattern and we can troubleshoot as we go. We can also see color changes in a better way. And this overall allows me to work very efficiently when it comes to creating those patterns. That's one of the biggest things that I love about Affinity, that you are able to create this pattern preview using symbols. So symbols allow you to mirror exactly the same thing from your symbol onto those other tiles. So as a symbol, we have this background layer, the square in our case, and whatever we put inside of that square, which has been made a symbol, will be reflected anywhere else this symbol is. So once this background symbol was created, I made a copies of it, and you will see that. Let's maybe open our layers. So this is my pattern tile, this one here, and this is my big preview. Exactly, this is my big preview artboard. You will see that I copied my symbol 4 times and I positioned them next to each other because it's a standard repeat type of pattern. And now any changes that I will do to this main, let's maybe take this one. Any changes that I perform on this main pattern tile, they will be reflected and you will be able to see it in your preview. I think it's really brilliant. So one takeaway from my setup: work in multiple artboards. Take advantage of those artboards and utilize them to the max. Create a mood board or create such previews that will help you streamline your work. You will also see in this interface that I have 2 templates. One template is for a standard repeat pattern, and the other template is for a half drop repeat pattern. For our exercise, I wanted to create a simple pattern that could be good for like a kid's pattern for pajamas or for a funny t-shirt. I will be drawing some abstract elements, so for me, I think it's absolutely fine to be doing it as a standard repeat. I'm going to swipe to the left to duplicate this template to make a copy. This is how I work. I have all those templates saved up for a standard repeat and for a half drop repeat, and then I just swipe, I make a copy, and then I work within the copy. And when I know the name for it, I choose the option to save it as, and I rename it here in my Live Docs menu too. So also in your document, you will have your main pattern and your preview, but we also need to add a little bit of space for our color palette. So from the hamburger menu, you select artboards, and then you create a new artboard, which you can also move all the way down in your layers panel. And going to the 3 dots, clicking on its name, I'm going to rename it as colors. Okay, I go to my asset studio. Actually, I have a whole category with my color palettes that I have saved as, oops, the move tool, that I have saved up in the form of those circular swatches. I like to have my color palette in some sort of a form here on this extra artboard because I'm using the color picker quite a lot. But you can also have your color palette saved up here under swatches and you can change your colors over here. It's up to you. So for starters, I want to make sure that I have selected my background layer, which is just called rectangle. It's just a rectangle shape. And I would like to, maybe let's go to the color picker tool. I would like to select this blue color for my background. I will be working when I create my vector shapes only using fill. I will not be using stroke. So fill is the inside of your shape and stroke is the outline of your shape. But there is one exception here, namely our background layer has to have both the same color of fill and it also has to have a stroke. If there's a different color, like here, you see there's the previous color, some sort of like a wishy-washy white, a grayish color, you will see that there are lines in here. And then when you export your pattern tile, it will have this strange outline and you will have an error in your pattern tile. So to fix that, you have to make sure that you have both fill and stroke. And now you have to also click the same color. You see it disappeared, so that you don't have any strange deviating strokes. that will ruin your pattern. So this is the only instance when we have to be mindful of our stroke. But apart from that, I will be drawing abstract shapes that have absolutely no stroke. If you have been following my work for a while, or if you have taken any of my courses, you will know that I absolutely love the pencil tool. So for this exercise, we will also be using the pencil tool. And as I click on it, you will see the contextual menu for it in this upper part of the screen. This is where you see your stroke. Making sure that I have deselected everything. I will flip it up and I will deactivate my stroke. Then this is where you can switch on. You see now it changed. Now the icon is this empty circle with a line across. It means there is no stroke, there is no outline. I have selected to use my fill and it already recognizes the blue color that I want to use. And I also make sure that our auto close is on. I will be using a little bit of stabilization, but just a little bit because I want my shapes to have this wobbly feeling, a hand-drawn feeling. In case you don't want to use any stabilization, stabilization basically makes your line smoother, less edgy. Then you can select it here. You can just choose no stabilization. I like using a window stabilizer and I set it up at around 30-ish. 30 something. And the main difference if you're working in Affinity version 1 is that you will not have this auto close option. I will make sure that my fill is selected. And now I will start drawing some random abstract shapes that could be good for a kid's pattern. Okay, so I start by drawing a flower. Just remember that it's all very abstract. And then I'm going to draw a crown. So what I have in mind is a pattern for kids. But of course, you are more than welcome to follow along and do this exercise with me and to create something for yourself. Maybe you want to draw, I don't know, maybe some flowers for starters. If I wanted perfect shapes, I would probably use the rectangle tool. But I want lines that have this organic feeling to them, so I stick to the pencil tool. And now I'm drawing another form of a flower that looks a little bit as if I spilled some ink. Okay, like so. Okay. I'm going to select everything at the same time using the gesture with 2 fingers. So I have the first layer selected and then I tap on the last one with 2 fingers and everything was selected at the same time. And I hit the group option, so I'm grouping it. Then I change my color to this purple color here. And I draw something that looks like a very abstract berry. Another abstract flower here. And a few imperfect circles. Maybe an arch. And a star. And perhaps another fish. So I'm really drawing from my imagination and I didn't plan this ahead. I want this pattern to be actually something quite spontaneous. And another half circle. And then I'm selecting everything and grouping it. Selecting the other group, moving to the move tool, and I make it a little bit smaller. If you want to preserve the proportions of your elements, you have to put 1 finger on the screen and it will snap back into its shape. And then I'm deselecting everything and changing my color to this brighter, lighter color, kind of off-white. Back to the pencil tool. And then again, I'm drawing from my imagination another arch, another half moon, and maybe a star with a different number of arms so that we have a little bit more variety. And perhaps another berry. I think I'm also missing 1 berry for this orange. So first I'm going to group this off-whitey color. And then I'm going to head back to this orange and I will draw another berry. I'm going to change the color in a second. It remembers this other color that I used. And from the color picker tool, I change its color to orange. Now I again select all the groups together. And from the move tool, I make them a little bit smaller. I'm going to rename it to, it can be actually any color. That's why later on I can make color variations. So I'm just going to name this group C1, which stands for color number 1. Because if I name this group something like purple or white, and then I'm doing some recoloring, I'm creating color variations, and I change it to green, and then I don't want to go into the fuss of renaming the group just because I'm feeling bothered that it says white and it actually includes something in green. And what we're going to do now is we will make a copy of this group and we will change its color. So this time I want to do it from the 3 dots menu. Click duplicate. Maybe bring it down. From the move tool, move it to the side, perhaps change the size a little bit. Rename it to color number 4. And the beauty of having everything in groups is that you can make color changes on the entire group level. So you don't have to go inside of this group and then swipe each and one of them and perform your color changes individually. You can just make sure that you're on the top group level, and then you can assign a color here on the group level, and all the elements that are inside of this group will be affected. I'm going to make it a little bit more saturated and a little bit more greenish. So now our elements were created, they're ready to go, but we have to place them onto our symbol so that we can actually take advantage of our live pattern preview tool. So I'm going to select all of those colors and I will drag and drop it into my symbol. So now if I close this group, it disappears. We know that all those elements are in the symbol and you will be able to see them in your preview. Okay, I'm just going to leave one color now and I will open this group and I will be going kind of one by one and I will be positioning the elements from this group onto my pattern tile. And the goal that I want to achieve is that I have some balance, meaning that those colors are not too close to each other, but they are really spread evenly across my pattern tile. Here you have an additional handle, you can also rotate it. And I will just take a moment now, make them a little bit smaller. If you want to preserve the proportions, you gotta put one finger onto your screen. And I'm going to position some of them in the corners as well. In a second, I can also show you how to utilize the Transform Studio to be able to put this element to the other side so that the pattern becomes seamless. If I want to make a copy of the same element, I don't have to go through the 3 dots menu and hit duplicate. Actually, a better option is from the Move tool to select the element that you want to duplicate and then to use 2 fingers on screen, and as you hold it, to grab the element that you want to copy and then to release, and it will create a copy of this element. If you want your elements to look slightly different, having it selected, you can also go here to the Transform Studio and you can flip them, for example, horizontally so that you deceive the eye a little bit and they look a little bit different. But since those elements are quite abstract, I don't think that it's that urgent here. I just wanted to know that you have this option here. I will also position one outside of the canvas. They will be good fillers, so right now I don't worry about them too much. I can create a few more copies after I have positioned all the other colors in a nice way. So what I'm gonna do now, I will speed up this video, and then I'm going to start bringing back the other colors from the group that I have just made invisible, and I will try to position them also in a nice and even way onto my artboard. I am able to see everything as I go in my pattern preview, and I will be also creating a few copies with the gesture that I have shown to you. Okay, now that my elements have been positioned more or less on the canvas, I am able to zoom out a little bit and then to have a look at my pattern preview, and then to move around the objects one more time from, across all the colors. So I don't go group by group. I perceive everything simultaneously, like all the colors. And if I want to select any particular element, I have to make sure to tap a few times on it. See, it's been selected, and I can move it around like so. I will also go to a few of those layers. I will go back to my pencil tool, and I will draw a few more elements that will belong to those groups. So one way to populate your board is by creating duplicates. And another one is basically to go back and to play around with the pencil tool and to draw a few more shapes. So I will, for instance, start with this light color, with this light white color, and I will draw a few more elements. For example, here I'm missing something. Just have to make sure that this color is really selected. Here I would like to have another star. So I'm basically just playing around with some abstract shapes, and very often I'm zooming in and out to see, I'm seeking for balance. I'm trying to identify where the pattern needs a few more elements. Circles and dots in general are extremely good fillers, so you're never in the wrong if you add a few more dots here and there. And because I want my pattern to look quite abstract, I don't worry about the smoothness of my shapes. Perhaps one more little star over here. Okay, and now I will move group by group. I'm moving to the purple group right now, for instance, and I will add a few more elements in this very color. I just start drawing and I make sure that I select the color that belongs to this particular group. Zooming in and zooming out frequently, looking for an overall balance. I want all my colors to be spread out quite evenly. So zooming out, that starts to look very good to me. I have a feeling that I have to move to this green color now. I would like to have a little bit more green accents here. And now I'm moving to the orange color. So you can use as many colors as you want. For this pattern, I think 4 colors for the elements and 1 for the background. That gives us together 5 colors. I think this is a good sweet spot. Of course, if you change your mind and you want to kick something out, you can go to the move tool. For example, I don't like those two shapes. You can hit here the delete icon and you can get rid of them entirely. You can also go in and change the shape. You can go to the node tool and add some extra nodes so that you can change the shape of your object. Okay, and now one final thing that we have to deal with is we have to build the actual seamless repeat. So I already have a few objects that are sticking outside of our canvas. For example, this wobbly flower here, it's being cut. And for this pattern to repeat, we need to transform a copy of this wobbly flower across on our y-axis down. The same for this orange wobbly flower. It's getting cut over here. One part of this flower is getting cut. So we have to again create a copy and transform it on the x-axis here. So this horizontal line is our x-axis. In the Transform Studio, you can see your x-axis position over here. And the up and down direction is our y-axis, which you can see over here. So let's take those two orange flowers and let me show you what I mean by copying them and transforming them to create a repeat. You remember that the dimensions of my pattern tile are 4,000 pixels. So what we gotta do, we have to select that flower. We have to create a copy of it by hitting duplicate. So now we have two same objects. And then selecting just one, we go to our Transform Studio. And we have to move it by 4,000 pixels down. Our starting point is in the upper left corner. This is our 0. And then, like I said, from up down, this is our y-axis. So in order to go from up here, which is our 0 point, in order to transform it to the bottom, we have to add to the y-axis plus 4,000 points. So I'm going to hit this number and I will hit plus 4,000 because this is exactly the side or the size of the side of my pattern tile. And then I will hit OK. And you will see that this has been transformed to the other side. And now, if it was something more elaborate, I would take those two elements and I would group them so that when I move them now, I am not messing up because they're like twins. They have to stay together. If you delete one of them, the pattern, maybe let me show you the preview. If you delete one of them, it will not repeat on the other side of your pattern tile, and then the pattern will not be repeating. So one way is to group them. Let's go back. And another way is to merge them using the Boolean operations. So when two of them are selected, from the Move tool, we can go to our Boolean operations and we can choose Add. And now this shape has been merged into one shape. I think I will be grouping because it saves me time, but you can also use this operation. And now I can see, okay, this is already on the edge, but I need to move now this element away so that everything looks more balanced. This is cut as well, so we can select that by tapping or double tapping on it. Then we create a copy, so now we have two copies. We select only one of them, we go to the Transform Studio. In order to move on the x-axis to the 0 point, we have to minus 4,000 pixels because this is again the dimensions of our pattern tile. And then, so that it really stays together and we do not mess it up, we can, for example, group it. I find that grouping is faster than merging shapes together. Okay, so now I will examine my pattern. I will see which elements are sticking out of the edges and I will move some of the elements so that they get cut on the edges so that I can transform them onto the other side. I will, for example, deal with those strange areas in the middle of my pattern. You see here, there isn't a lot going on, and this is kind of reflected in the pattern because there are a lot of empty spots here. So what I'm gonna do is I will keep working on that pattern. I will make a few maybe new items that I will put outside of the artboard, or I will move the existing elements to outside of the artboard, and from here I'm going to transform them onto the other side of my pattern. So I'll see you in a bit. Now, because we have all of those colors in separate groups, color changes are really super easy. So if we, for example, wanted to change this orange color, we just group it from the entire group level. We go to the color studio and we change, for example, to this. Oh, I really love this one. You can also change very easily the background layer. The only thing that you gotta remember is that our background layer is the only element that also has stroke. So for example, if I go to this blue color and I make it darker, I have to make sure, see, that my stroke has the same color. So I have to select stroke, color picker. I picked this new darker navy blue color and I applied it to my stroke as well. So this is our final pattern. It's super simple. It's built out of abstract shapes and it's a standard repeat. You see that we have so many, so much going on in here in with regard to color and shapes that the repeat is not that obvious, even though it's a standard repeat pattern. So if you include enough detail and you're being a little bit strategic about placing everything very evenly on your pattern tile, then even though it's just a standard repeat pattern, the repeat is not that obvious, and I believe that this pattern looks really good. Vector patterns are super versatile. You can scale it up and down without any quality loss. And now pretty much this pattern is ready to use for my print-on-demand shop, for example. So I usually export it not from the export persona. I usually go to the hamburger menu and click on export. And then most of the time I export a PNG, but a JPEG is also fine. You only have to make sure that you select your main pattern tile, which I have renamed as my pattern. You just click on share and you can save it to your camera roll, you can airdrop it, or you can save it to your documents on Dropbox, for example, or on your iPad. So that was a very quick and basic introduction to creating vector patterns in Affinity Designer. If you want more information, you can follow me on Skillshare if you have a membership. There's definitely more detailed and perhaps more slow-paced courses that I can offer through my shop so that you can master vector pattern design at your own pace. You can also subscribe to my newsletter to get notified about my new tutorials and any upcoming courses. I also share some recommendations regarding Affinity and surface design. Yeah, and I send it out only once per month, so it's nothing too invasive. Perhaps you would also like to join our Facebook support group for Affinity Designer, where we share our work, we ask for feedback or critique. You can get a lot of answers there, not just from me, but also from the members of this small group. Perhaps I will also see you on my own YouTube channel, or hopefully I will see you in class.
Bye bye. Happy vectorizing.